Hey everyone, I've got a progress update for version 1.2 of the Dynamic Surface Navigation plugin. The major feature of version 1.2 is going to be EQS support, but to get there are some other changes I needed to make, and so I want to show you the progress I've made so far. If you've used the Dynamic Surface Navigation plugin before, you know that you could not see the navigation that was generated without playing the level. In this update I'm working on, you're going to be able to visualize all the navigation data in editor without having to play. I've added some options onto the grid builder that allow you to show different parts of the navigation and specify the radius, how far out you want to show that navigation, because it is kind of expensive to show it, so you don't want to have it generate too far out. The first option is to show Nav Blocks, and that will show blocks with these red lines. And Nav Blocks are the largest piece of nav data that's part of the DSN plugin. The next option is to show Nav Grid Points. A grid point is kind of a step down from the Nav block, and you'll see grid points anywhere there is some kind of navigation data available. And as you can see, the grid points are represented by these dark green diamonds, two-dimensional diamonds. And the next option, show Nav Points. This is probably the most useful piece of information. This actually shows the navigation points that are generated for these surfaces. These are generated from each one of the grid points, and the color depends on the nav area that they're part of. Now that we've got the nav points showing, I'd like to show the display radius from camera option. And so, as you can see, as I back up from the platform, some of the points start disappearing because they're outside the radius. And so once I increase this number, it will increase the radius that the points will be displayed at. You don't want to make this too far because it can hurt performance while you're moving around. For these next options, I'm going to leave the nav points showing because it'll make a little more sense. And the next option is going to be show nav point normals. And that's just what it sounds like. It's showing the surface normal that point represents. And along with that, the normal arrow that's shown is color-coded. So up is blue, along the z-axis is red, along the y-axis is green, and it will adjust in between colors. So if it's pointing at an angle, it'll be a blend of the colors. Now this next option is the show nav neighbor directions, and what that's going to show is each nav point has up to 8 neighbors, and this is going to show you what those neighbors are. You'll see that you can't always see a neighbor around a corner, and that's because it's cutting through the corner, so you can go into the mesh, just fly into the mesh and see those neighboring lines there. And the lines are color-coded to their direction as well. So those lines pointing at each other should be the same color. Alright, and then the last option here I'm going to show is show Nav Links. So show Nav Links will show you the points of the nav link and the directional arrow for that nav link. If it's one direction, it'll just be a single direction arrow. If it's bi-directional, you'll have arrow pointing in each direction. And it will also show the points, the nav points that nav link is connected to, each side of the nav link. And you'll see those as lines, again color-coded to the nav area. This works for both simple Nav Links and the Smart Nav Links. This can help you better position the ends of the Nav Links so it connects to the Nav Points the way you want. Something I would like to show is as you move actors around, the navigation will update, assuming that actor affects navigation. I also added a couple of options so you can have more control over the timer intervals for some of the updates. It may be useful in certain scenarios to be able to adjust this. I wanted to leave it up to the developer to choose what works best for them. And this in-editor navigation visualization will also work on Voxel Plugin 1.2. As you'll see, when I turn this on and move around, the navigation will be generated. I'm just going to move around the scene so you can see it showing the navigation data that's being generated for this Voxel Plugin level. So that was Voxel Plugin 1.2, but this will also work on Voxel Plugin 2.0. So here we have a Voxel Plugin 2.0 planet. If you look closely, you can see where the nav mesh volume bounds is. And so let's zoom into there. As you can see, the navigation is generating on this platform, but not on the Voxel Plugin world. And so the reason for that is in editor, to get collision for Voxel Plugin 2.0, you've got to run this little command that I'm going to paste in here. Command is voxel.collision.enable in editor 1, and so that will allow Voxel Plugin 2.0 to generate its collision in editor, and then that will allow the navigation to generate once we refresh the navigation. But as you can see now, it is generating the navigation on Voxel Plugin 2.0 in editor. So there you have it. That's the progress I've made so far on version 1.2. While these changes were required for EQS support, for me to continue on with the EQS support, I think these changes will also be very useful, as it'll help developers placing their actors, knowing how the navigation is going to generate on them. That's all for today. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to get notifications, and please leave a comment if you have any suggestions for me to add to the plugin, or what you thought of today's video. Thank y'all. Have a good one.